As I stepped into the crowded bistro searching for my client, my eyes unexpectedly landed on my ex-wife, Jennifer. She was nestled close to a rotund, middle-aged man who had clearly let himself go over the years. Jennifer sat beside him, looking completely at ease. Everything about this man screamed opulence. Standing in the doorway, memories of our time together rushed back. Though 3 years had passed since our divorce, the emotions felt as raw and painful as if it had happened yesterday. Instead of being with her, I found myself observing from afar, merely an outsider to her new life, where her dreams were realized, while my struggles had only begun. This ordeal started with a business trip to Denver for a client meeting. To avoid the exhausting drive back, I had planned to stay overnight. However, just an hour into the journey, the client called to cancel due to a car accident. Although he was unharmed, he apologized profusely for the inconvenience. I assured him it wasn't an issue and suggested we reschedule. Despite my calm exterior, the sudden change left me dreading the long drive back. Determined to make the best of the situation, I decided to surprise my wife with a romantic dinner. 90 minutes later, I finally turned onto my street, anticipating a lovely evening. Instead, I was met with 3 unfamiliar cars parked in my driveway. Knowing Jennifer often had friends over when I was away, I shrugged it off and parked on the street. I walked into the house expecting normalcy. However, the sight of clothes scattered across the living room floor immediately raised red flags. Standing there, a sinking feeling washed over me as I realized the sounds I heard were far from innocent. My wife's moans were unmistakably those of pleasure, not distress. My heart sank as the harsh reality hit me. Jennifer was cheating on me. Despite my hesitation, I knew I had to confront whatever was happening upstairs. As I reached the top of the stairs, I could hear her primal screams. Peeking around the bedroom doorframe, I was met with a sight that made my stomach churn. There were 3 men with her, 2 strangers, and her boss, Alex Turner. They had my wife engaged in acts that made my blood boil. My hatred for Alex grew as he showered her with praise, exploiting her for his pleasure. They treated her like a mere object, using vulgar language and asserting their dominance over her. Watching this, I felt a mix of fury and disgust, unable to reconcile this woman with the Jennifer I had known for 10 years. Quietly retreating, I slipped downstairs unnoticed and sought refuge in my office. I grabbed my digital video camera, which fortunately still had some battery life and an old holiday tape inside. My goal was to record this betrayal, capturing agonizing minutes before my emotions overwhelmed me. While some might find such a scene arousing, for me, it was a waking nightmare. It filled me with a deep sense of sadness and betrayal. Feeling utterly shattered, I retreated to my office downstairs to clear my mind. I opened the safe and took out my handgun, switching off the safety just in case. Although I wasn't typically violent, the need to regain control was overwhelming. Heading back to the living room, I collected the car keys and wallets from the discarded pants on the floor. I then went outside and deflated the tires of all the cars, including Jennifer's. A wicked smile spread across my face as I devised a plan I was sure would work. I had noticed Jennifer's cell phone on the bedside table while recording. Positioning myself discreetly behind the stairs, I dialed her number. After several rings, she finally picked up. The silence in the house indicated she had told the others to be quiet. Breathlessly, she answered, "Hey, John, how's Denver?" I could hear the faint laughter of the men in the background. "You sound out of breath. Is everything okay?" I pretended to be concerned. "Yeah, just had to run upstairs for my phone." She quickly composed herself. "My client canceled, so I'll be home soon." "How about dinner?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I was seething inside. "You're coming home now?" she asked, clearly anxious. "Yes, just need to freshen up." "See you soon," I replied smoothly. She hurriedly hung up and I grinned, knowing what was about to unfold. As anticipated, 4 naked individuals started rushing down the stairs into the living room. The men quickly dressed while Jennifer threw on some clothes as they all scrambled to leave. She slipped on her shoes and jacket, glancing outside, hoping they'd be gone before I arrived. If she hadn't been so flustered, She might have noticed my car parked down the street. I sneaked into the house through a side door. The men began shouting at Jennifer all at once, causing her to step onto the porch to try and hear them better. At that exact moment, chaos erupted. I slammed the front door shut and locked it, cutting off any chance for Jennifer to plead her case. She caught a glimpse of my furious face through the window, but words were useless now. The men rushed back to the porch, banging on the door and demanding their belongings. Sensing their intentions, I quickly called 911, reporting an attempted break-in. The dispatcher informed me that a neighbor had already called, providing my name and address. The police arrived swiftly within minutes. As the officers questioned Jennifer, I stepped forward, insisting that my wife had been assaulted by the men and demanding their arrest. The men immediately protested, claiming they were invited and that everything was consensual. All eyes turned to Jennifer, waiting for her to confirm or deny. Avoiding eye contact, she shamefully admitted that she had indeed invited the men and willingly participated. The men visibly relaxed, relieved to avoid any charges. More police cars arrived, and they collected everyone's information. The senior officer then told me that since Jennifer had invited these men and they were all consenting adults, there was little they could do legally. He suggested counseling, his eyes filled with disdain as he looked at Jennifer. I instructed the police to call a taxi for Jennifer, stating she wasn't allowed back in the house that night. One of the men arranged for a taxi after discovering their tires were flat. They also tried to accuse me of stealing their belongings, but I vehemently denied the claims. I turned back to the porch, where Jennifer remained, awaiting the taxi. My eyes burned with anger as I stared at her. Despite my fury, Jennifer walked towards me, oblivious to the gun I had hidden. She might have run if she had known. "David, I am so sorry," she began, but I cut her off harshly. "You've shattered my heart, and I will never forgive you. Alex called you a whore, and honestly, it fits. From now on, I will refer to you as such and never use your real name again. If you need to communicate with me, do it through Tom." With that, I went back inside, locking the door behind me, leaving her outside. She ran back to the group in tears, and Alex tried to console her, but she pushed him away, which gave me a fleeting sense of satisfaction. However, that feeling quickly faded. Returning to my bedroom, the lingering smell of lemon only fueled my rage. I stormed through the room, throwing the mattress out onto the lawn. I grabbed my toolbox from the garage and dismantled the bed frame, tossing its pieces outside as well. Back in the bedroom, the wreckage mirrored my shattered life. I snatched Jennifer's phone and started scrolling through her contacts and messages. As expected, I found sickening emails, photos, and videos of her with various men. She clearly had intimate relationships with them. A bitter laugh escaped me as I realized how blind I had been. My ignorance was finally over. I gathered all her belongings from the bedroom and threw them onto the front lawn. In the guest room, I found more of her things. While emptying the last drawer, I felt something wedged inside. Furious, I yanked it open, revealing several DVDs hidden beneath. One of the cases was cracked, but the disc was intact. My heart sank once more as I examined the DVDs. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. Downstairs, I lined everything up on a shelf and began watching. The first DVD showed Jennifer with her friend Lisa at Lisa's house, engaging in explicit acts with various people. I watched for hours, tears streaming down my face, stopping only at the final two discs. The first of the last two showed Jennifer with her personal trainer, a service I had paid for. She always came home too exhausted for intimacy after her sessions, which now made sense. The second DVD was the most gut-wrenching Jennifer in her office with Brad and his boss, Tom Mitchell, a man highly respected in the community. Seeing this, I felt a deeper level of betrayal. I carefully placed her phone, the DVDs, and the tape I had recorded earlier into a large envelope. I planned to give it all to my lawyer and my best friend, Chris Hayes, one of the few people I trusted. Nothing else mattered at that moment. I powered up Jennifer's computer and copied every file, email, photo, and video onto external drives. It took an hour, but I was relentless. After that, I sat down to sift through her digital archives. I found videos similar to those on the DVDs and explicit photos. Digging deeper, I uncovered emails from the past 6 months hidden under misleading file names, revealing even more of her treachery. I discovered a series of emails between Jennifer, Brad, and several other men, including exchanges with Lisa. I had dismissed them last week, but one particular email nearly shattered me. For a brief moment, the thought of using my gun crossed my mind, but I quickly realized she wasn't worth it. I needed to stay strong. The email that devastated me was from Jennifer to Lisa. Lisa had asked why she hadn't left me and to describe her ideal future husband. Jennifer's response was brutally honest and cut deep. Lisa, I am done with John. He is faithful but a fool. I'm afraid he's getting close to discovering my double life. He's not entirely clueless, but love blinds him. He's been gaining weight lately, and his growing belly is such a turnoff. Compared to other men, he is lacking. I hate his beard and mustache. They make him look disgusting. I used to care about him, but the excitement of the last few years is too thrilling to abandon. His attorney friend could be an issue if he gets involved. Brad and Tom at work are suggesting promotions and perks with hints. I find it entertaining. I also want a house and a car. If I play my cards right, I could secure monthly alimony. I am looking forward to our Tuesday party once my tennis injury heals. Mike is incredible. Make sure I get last Thursday's video. It was my first time with so many men. As for my ideal man, he must be rich, loyal, obedient, and not too smart. He must cater to my every whim without question. I don't care about the bedroom as long as there's money. I laugh. I can get my needs met elsewhere. Sometimes it is just too easy. Damn, John is home now. Gotta go. See you Tuesday. Call me. I read this message over and over, each word more disgusting than the last. Realizing she felt this way about me and that she had been cheating for over 2 years was soul-crushing. Had I been so blind? I finally collapsed on the couch, overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotional pain, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, after a restless night, I called in sick to work. I reached out to my close friend and attorney, Chris Hayes. His secretary, Linda, answered. I'd known her almost as long as I'd known Chris. I urgently requested a meeting, but she informed me he'd be in court all day. Linda relayed my message, and Chris told her to schedule me in an hour. If he starts bothering you with nonsense, mention Laura White. That'll get his attention. See you in an hour, I said before hanging up. As I got dressed, my phone rang. Reluctant to speak with Jennifer, I checked the caller ID. It was an unknown number, so I answered, suspecting it might be Chris. Hello, Mr. Lewis. This is Tom Mitchell from Jennifer's office. I'd like to discuss the events from last night at your house. Can we meet today in my office to clarify the situation? Unsure if he knew about the video footage of him with my wife, I realized he was concerned about retaining Brad Bennett's key clients. Jennifer and Brad were valuable assets to him, and he didn't want to lose them. Additionally, he was likely worried about negative publicity for his company and himself. Mr. Mitchell, I began. In their meeting room, Chris highlighted that Jennifer's superiors had manipulated her actions, preparing them for severe legal repercussions. Once Tom Mitchell realizes the depth of our evidence, he'll probably seek a settlement, Chris advised. If it's less than $2 million, he can forget it, I declared. Let us aim for $5 million. I've seen your legal bills before, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. Come over tonight at 7:00 p.m. Anna's cooking something special. You need a break. I arranged a meeting with Tom Mitchell for 2 p.m. Just then, Linda entered the office. Chris, Jennifer is on line 1, she said. Linda, I said no calls, Chris snapped. Sorry, Chris, but Jennifer insists on speaking with you. I thought you might want to take it, Linda explained. Chris sighed. All right, put her through. Does she know David is here? Not that I know of, Linda replied. Tell her I'll talk to her in a moment, he said, calming down. As Linda left, I remarked, I bet she has realized her phone, computer, and DVDs are missing and saw her stuff on the lawn. Wow, you really had a night. Let me handle this call. Please don't interrupt. I need to sort out a few things, Chris said, connecting the call. I could hear Chris's side of the conversation, imagining Jennifer's frantic responses. Hi, Jennifer. Yes, I talked to him. David is a decent man and my friend. I thought you, of all people, would support him, not betray him. No excuses. Yes, I am representing him, and he has a strong case. This one to be easy. You've devastated a man who loved you deeply. He doesn't care about your excuses. Get yourself a good lawyer, you'll need one. Yes, Tom Mitchell scheduled a meeting for 2 p.m., but I don't think you should attend. If you even try to eavesdrop, I'll advise David to leave, and things will escalate. It's better to stay away and stay calm today. I know he put your belongings on the lawn, but just as you can invite strangers into your bedroom, he can remove your possessions from the house. I'm surprised he didn't resort to violence last night. Yes, he was armed, but for self-defense he thought you were in danger. It's in the police report. If it were my Anna, I'd be in jail now. I think David acted out of anger regarding your missing items. Talk to David, he probably left them on the lawn. I've handled all the escrow paperwork, and you both have equal rights. How you use these rights is up to you, Chris continued, telling her to stay put and let David remain in the house until things settled. He warned her not to push it and admitted he felt like hitting her. He advised her to stay with Lisa and promised to be in touch. He also told her to have her lawyer contact him once they've hired one. Chris's demeanor was resolute. He made it clear her tears wouldn't sway him and that he could be ruthless when necessary. This was one of those times. He expressed regret that she would now see a side of him only his adversaries knew, and warned she wouldn't like it. Chris concluded by instructing Jennifer to keep her distance from David and stay at her office, as he wanted nothing to do with her. Turning to me, Chris asked if I caught most of the conversation. Yeah, I did, I admitted. I want to confront her face to face and tell her how I feel, but I don't think I can bear seeing her again. Not yet. I have a couple of requests for you, David, Chris said, shifting to a more positive tone. First, give me those tapes. I handed him the videotapes from the envelope, the ones from last night, the footage of Mike at the tennis club, and the recordings of her with Brad and Mitchell. Invite Linda to lunch, Chris instructed. Seeing my puzzled look, he explained, I'll review these tapes to spare you more distress before our meeting with Mitchell. Watching them, one to help you right now. You need to stay calm. Recognizing his wisdom, I thanked him and shared the good news with Linda. She joked about going to an upscale restaurant if Chris was paying. We laughed and left the office. Linda was a great lunch companion, helping me forget my troubles for a while. When we returned, we found Chris in high spirits, doing a little victory dance. These recordings are a game changer, David. I can believe it, he exclaimed. My bittersweet expression must have clued him in. Oh, David, I am sorry. I didn't realize how much these videos hurt you. I was just excited about the evidence, he apologized. David, come over here. I need you to see something, Chris beckoned. I stood behind him, looking at the screen. Did you watch the entire video Mike shot at the tennis club with Jennifer? He asked. No, I only skimmed through some of it. It was tough to watch without wanting to lash out, I admitted. Brace yourself for this, Chris said, his tone serious. Right after Mike and Jennifer finished, a small crowd gathered in the men's locker room. Yes, the tennis club's locker room. It's hard to believe, but she allowed the other men who were watching to join in after Mike. I'm not showing you this to upset you, but to reveal the kind of person we're dealing with, Chris said, pointing to the screen on his desk. The man on the screen was older, wrapped in a towel with long gray hair and a walrus-like mustache. Do you recognize him? Chris asked, hitting play. The man dropped the towel, revealing a physique any man would boast about. The real problem was he immediately went to my wife and started having sex with her while 5 other men surrounded her, eagerly waiting their turn. I have no idea who this guy is, but you seem to, I replied, struggling to stay calm. David, this is crucial for our meeting today at the tennis club at 4 p.m., Chris said, his excitement clear as he outlined his plan. I couldn't help but smile at his strategy. Besides being a friend, Chris was an exceptional lawyer, and I felt reassured having him on my side. We left his office, heading downtown, carrying a portable DVD player, printed photos, and legal documents. When we arrived at the building, we headed to Tom Mitchell's office on the top floor, with Jennifer's office just a floor below. After waiting in the reception area, we were finally ushered into Mr. Mitchell's lavish office. Just before entering, I felt someone's eyes on me from the hallway. I glanced over and saw a woman who quickly disappeared around the corner. Guess who, I thought, relieved I wouldn't have to face her today. Inside, Tom S. office was filled with luxurious furniture, plaques, awards, and photos with notable figures. I wondered if he had ever brought Jennifer here. My disdain for Mr. Mitchell grew even stronger. "Hello, Mr. Mitchell. This is my friend Chris Hayes, and he'll be joining us today," I said as we shook hands. "Mr. Lewis, Dave, I thought this was supposed to be a private meeting between us," Tom said, surprised. "Well, I brought Chris along. Anything you need to say to me, you can say to him as well," I stated firmly, leaving no room for debate. He reluctantly accepted Chris S.'s presence and continued addressing me while ignoring Chris, which made Chris smile. I knew what was coming, but let Tom speak first. "Dave, may I call you Dave?" Tom asked. "Sure, no problem. Actually, I think it would be good to have Brad Bennett here too. This concerns him as well," I suggested. After a pause, Tom pressed the intercom. "Julie, tell Brad to come to my office immediately. Drop everything and get here right away." "Understood." "Brad will be here shortly," she replied. "In the meantime, I want to sincerely apologize for the trouble Brad and Jennifer have caused in your life. I know last night must have been terrible, but if we work together, we might find a solution that benefits everyone," Tom said optimistically. "What exactly do you mean, Mr. Mitchell?" I asked, waiting for Brad to arrive. "I genuinely care for your wife, Jennifer," Tom started, but was interrupted by Brad S.'s entrance. Brad hesitated, looking like he might leave, but Tom told him to sit down. Reluctantly, Brad obeyed, avoiding my gaze. "Dave, I want you to know I care for Jennifer like a daughter," he began, but Chris cut in. "Are you implying you have a penchant for incest, Mr. Mitchell?" Chris asked, catching him off guard. I chuckled, understanding Chris S.'s point. "What are you accusing me of? Incest? What is this about?" he responded, clearly offended. "Let me show you." "A picture is worth 1,000 words, Chris said, placing the DVD player on Tom S.'s desk. "These are screenshots from the video you are about to see," he said, handing them to Brad, who reluctantly passed them to Tom. The images clearly showed Tom and Brad with my wife, leaving no doubt about their actions. Tom probably recognized his own boardroom table where the events took place. "Are you telling me you recorded this and shared it?" Tom asked, nearly speechless. Brad was too stunned to respond. "Here's how it's going to go, Mr. Mitchell," Chris began, enjoying the moment. "Firstly, Jennifer keeps her job. David believes she'll need it, and she fits in well here," Chris said with a wink at Tom. "Secondly, Mr. Bennett is out." "Jennifer stays, he goes," Chris stated, pointing at the stunned Brad. "Thirdly, you will give us a financial offer that respects our intelligence. We'll consider your proposal and respond within 5 business days. We might take legal action within 2 months if necessary." Before they could react, Chris started the video showing Tom and Brad repeatedly engaging in sexual acts with my wife in their boardroom. Tom watched in shock while Brad looked away, already knowing the content. I could see Tom thinking about how to protect his business, family, and finances. "Brad, after these gentlemen leave, we need to discuss your future here," Tom said, his voice trembling. "I'll consult with my legal counsel to negotiate a settlement that might satisfy you to some extent," Tom mused aloud. "You both understand the potential repercussions for our business if this information were to leak prematurely." "Don't worry, Mr. Mitchell," Chris reassured him. "We'll keep this confidential until we receive a serious proposal from you. However, I wouldn't rush to dismiss Mr. Bennett just yet. He might have other copies of the video, which could give him leverage if we don't handle this carefully. You and Mr. Bennett can deal with that issue independently. Also, you should be aware that both of you could face legal consequences for having relations with an employee, which could affect your employment status and future prospects," Chris warned. As we prepared to leave, Chris gathered the DVD player and photos we had brought. We exited, leaving Tom and Brad to have a private discussion. I was about to ask Chris a question, but he gestured for silence until we were outside. I hadn't noticed Jennifer lurking around the corner trying to eavesdrop, but Chris had. The last thing I heard was Tom barking into the intercom, "Get him here immediately." I grinned, anticipating an interesting confrontation, as Tom would soon discover the DVD I found at home. Once outside, I asked Chris why he suggested that Brad might use his own videotape against Tom. "Divide and conquer," Chris explained. "It's just better if they don't to present a united front, but rather focus on protecting themselves. That way, if Tom gives us a lowball offer, we can play them against each other." Also, both Brad and Tom have families and reputations in the community. They are not keen on shaking things up. As we left the building, I realized it would now be remembered as the place where my wife betrayed me, rather than her prestigious workplace. Chris S. words snapped me back to reality. "All right, let us grab a beer before our next meeting at the tennis club at 4:00 p.m. We both need a drink, and there's something I need to discuss with you, though I'm not quite sure how yet," Chris mentioned. We drove across town towards the tennis club and stopped at a quaint bar and restaurant nearby. Chris ordered 2 beers and began speaking. "David, I believe Tom Mitchell will make an offer, probably just under $1 million. I am familiar with his legal team from another case, and they are quite skilled. He's also practical. I'll call him tomorrow and let him know that a lowball offer, one to be good for his business or personal life. I'll propose around $3 million or suggest we walk away from negotiations altogether," he disclosed. "Additionally, I need to know if, in the event the offer is rejected, I have your permission to portray Jennifer in a negative light. I won to hold back. My duty as your lawyer is to win, even if it means revealing potentially damaging details about Jennifer, your marriage, and even your personal life. It might get ugly and very public, but I'll use every legal tactic to secure our case. You might not like all the information that could come out," he cautioned. I had thought about it seriously. I believe I have more integrity than they think, and I am willing to proceed if necessary. But I do prefer to see the financial offer first, I said. Chris agreed and suggested starting by assessing Tom's offer. He assured me that if Tom's offer was inadequate, he would handle all the paperwork quickly. Additionally, he mentioned using his newspaper contacts and friends at 3 local news stations who would be eager to obtain footage and images even if they needed to censor explicit content. "Chris, you've always been there for me, and I trust your judgment. I just wish this whole mess had never happened. Being an oblivious husband was easier than being publicly humiliated by a cheating wife. Still, you have my authorization to do whatever is necessary. After all, I didn't start this mess, but I am determined to end it soon," I said, frustration clear in my voice. "Understood, David, no problem. Now let us discuss the material for our next meeting. This guy, Mr. Frank Nash, owns the tennis club. He's the man I pointed out in the video in my office. He's likely to take a hands-off approach, saying that adults will be adults and he won't get involved. Even Mike S., tennis coach, might be fired for appearances, only to be rehired later. Mike is very popular at the club, especially among female members. Remember, David, that while men primarily pay club dues, women are also significant stakeholders. This dynamic will be crucial in your discussion with Mr. Nash," he briefed me. We arrived just in time, and it was evident that Mr. Nash and Chris didn't see eye to eye. Their animosity was clear from the start. "Mr. Nash, this is David Lewis," Chris said, nodding in my direction. "His wife is a member of your club. It has come to our attention that Mike Johnson, your tennis instructor, was having an affair with Mr. Lewis' wife. We want to know what you plan to do about this," Chris finished. He waited for Nash to respond, but even I knew Nash would brush it off and in a few words dismiss Chris. "Listen, what 2 consenting adults do behind closed doors on their own time is none of my business," Frank Nash stated. "And as for you, Mr. Lewis, if you can keep your wife satisfied, don't blame me if she wanders. Plenty of unhappy spouses frequent this tennis club, and some return for the special attention my staff provides." "If you catch my drift," Frank said with a sly grin. Rage surged through me, but Chris grabbed my wrist, quietly advising me to stay composed and follow his lead. "Frank, you're assuming this happened without your knowledge or consent." "That's quite an assumption," Chris said, pulling out a DVD player and placing it on Frank's desk. He hit play, directing the screen toward Frank. The color drained from Frank's face as he watched the footage. Before Frank could react, Chris jumped in. "Frank, you and your staff knowingly took advantage of a member, Jennifer Lewis, a married woman whose fees were paid by Mr. Lewis. Now, Mr. Lewis is understandably a very dissatisfied customer. When word of this gets out, every paying husband will question whether his wife is doing the same while he is footing the bill. I'll need to subpoena everyone present in the locker room that day. I doubt the married men will appreciate that, Chris said, his tone serious. And there's the issue of privacy invasion from filming in the locker room. Frank, once we are through with you, your Club's reputation will be in tatters and your finances will crumble, Chris added for emphasis. Here is what we want: a significant financial settlement and swift action from you. This could save you a lot of trouble and money, Chris continued. We watched Frank Nash consider his options. Chris, you are something else, but your logic is sound. I'll call you tomorrow with my offer. If I comply, all tapes are returned to me and kept confidential. Mike will be fired immediately. Now, if that's all you legal bandits wanted, get out, Frank said, dismissing us. Chris grinned, collecting the DVD player and switching it off. Oh, and say hi to Victor Ramirez for me, Chris said to Frank as we left the room. Go to hell, Hayes, was Frank's only reply. Chris laughed all the way to the parking lot. Well, that was quite the adventure. Now we wait for offers, Chris told me as we headed to his house for a homemade dinner. By the end of the week, Tom Mitchell had offered nearly $7 million. Brad Bennett, after naively handing over all his tapes to Tom, found himself jobless as Tom swiftly fired him, leaving Brad with little recourse. I went after the two clients of Brad S. who were involved with my wife. Both were desperate to avoid publicity for their companies and themselves, so each offered me $1 million to keep quiet. Frank Nash refused to make any offer, suggesting we take legal action instead. So we did. He ended up losing $3 million, and by the time we were done with him, his club faced a mass exodus of members, forcing him to give up ownership. He thought he could escape unscathed, but the judge was unimpressed with the locker room footage and the infidelity. I gave Jennifer a house and a car as she wanted without paying a dime in child support. I saw her only twice in court. Both times I called her a strumpet, which made her cry. I often wondered why she cried now, but not before causing such chaos in my life. Following Chris's advice, I ended up with more money than I ever imagined, though the pain still lingered, haunting me to this day. Lost in thought, all the trials of that dreadful year came flooding back. I hadn't realized someone was speaking to me until I snapped out of my reverie and heard the restaurant manager asking if everything was okay. Unsure how long I had stood there, I shook my head to clear it and returned to the present. Sorry, just lost in some old memories. Thanks, I told the manager, noticing his curious glance, much like how people look at someone lost in their thoughts. I headed straight to my ex-wife's table. The shock on her face was clear the last time she saw me. I was overweight, with long hair and a beard, still nursing an old knee injury from baseball. That was my excuse, but in reality, I had settled into a complacent life with her. Now, with a shorter haircut, a fitter physique from regular workouts, and a repaired knee thanks to the settlements, I looked very different. My suits were now high-end, and I made sure to present myself well in public. I decided to break the ice. You look amazing today, Strumpet. Almost forgot how stunning you can be, I remarked, deliberately aiming to provoke her. My name is Jennifer, David. Why can't you call me by my name, she snapped, clearly agitated. I didn't give you the nickname Strumpet. You know who did. I just find it fitting. I warned you 3 years ago that you shattered my heart, I said, watching her face. The man next to her began to rise, ready to defend her, but she urged him to stay seated. Tears welled up in her eyes, smearing her makeup. Her boyfriend stepped in. Go fix your makeup, Jen. I'll handle this jerk. With those words, she stood, locking eyes with me as tears streamed down her face. Her reaction took me by surprise. I didn't think she still had any feelings left for me. Maybe it was guilt. I expect you to be gone when I get back, she said tearfully, heading to the restroom. As she wiped her eyes, I noticed a large engagement ring on her finger. You must be David Lewis, Jennifer's ex-husband, he said with a sneer. Indeed. And you must be the new man she's been dreaming about, I replied, feeling his hostility. I am Jennifer's CFO. I'd advise you to watch your language, he warned, clearly trying to avoid a scene. I only have a few questions, and then I'll be out of your life forever, I told him, noticing his puzzled expression. I've been where you are, and I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. I'm sure she has painted me as a terrible husband, abusive, neglectful, or a womanizer, but I'm not here to change your opinion of me. First question, does Jessica still host her Avon gatherings on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Jennifer helps Jessica with her decor sales on Mondays and Wednesdays. Your memory must be slipping, he retorted smugly. All right then, does she still play tennis on Saturdays, I asked. Jennifer plays tennis on Sundays. Your recollection seems pretty poor for someone who was married to her for so long, he said triumphantly. Final question. Have you ever looked under the bottom drawer of the dresser in your living room, I inquired. No, why would I do that? He responded, clearly confused. The three questions I asked are why we are no longer together. I still have all the leftover divorce paperwork, emails from Jessica and the other women, and hours of videotapes. I've carried these with me for 3 years. I thought you should have them, I explained, pulling a worn piece of paper from my wallet. This is what another woman wrote to Jessica when she asked how to get rid of me before I discovered her infidelity. After reading that letter, I realized I didn't know Jennifer at all, but it all revolves around you, I said, handing him the paper. I knew Jennifer's habits well. She always followed the same routine meticulously, sometimes driving me crazy. I suspected that even with a new man, she'd stick to her old ways. He hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him. He reached over and opened the letter. I have carried it for 3 years, rereading it occasionally and striving to better myself so that no woman would ever write such things about me again. Of all the evidence, that letter hit me the hardest, which is why I have kept it with me. He read the letter slowly, then set it down. Quickly he grabbed a pen, scribbled a note on it, and abruptly left the restaurant without looking back or saying thanks. His face remained expressionless. I leaned over to see what he had written. I'll be back soon. Please wait here. I need to check under the bottom drawer of the living room dresser. Adam. I sensed he'd seen the truth, even if he didn't like it. The letter seemed to be the tipping point, and he needed to verify it himself. Leaving a note on Jennifer's table, I exited the restaurant. There was no way I was staying there tonight. In the lobby, I called my client, who was fine with rescheduling our meeting since they were running late anyway. Before leaving, I glanced back at the table. Jennifer returned, searching for Adam. Sitting down, she noticed her old letter and Adam's note. Her face turned pale as she read them. The last time I saw my ex-wife, she was sobbing so intensely that the entire restaurant stared. I felt a twinge of pity, but was mostly indifferent. That was my final encounter with her. I still wonder if Adam found anything under the dresser drawer. Jennifer's tears suggested he might have.